Welcome to Can't Shelve This, the podcast where we hammer home the importance of school libraries. I'm Janette and I'm joined by my co-host Leah Gregory.
Hi, everyone.
And our producer, Ola Gronsky.
Hello, everyone.
It's great to be back with both of you. I feel like I always say that at the beginning of a new episode, but...
you just enjoy our company so much.
I do. It's always good to... We do kind of live for these recording sessions, but we've all had a really, really busy, last couple weeks, right? So this is a time for us to kind of regroup. Conference season in the library world has kind of come to a close. At least, I guess Leah and I have another conference later this month that we'll be at. But that one's a little less stressful, I think, than the others that we've been
I think
through.
so, too. It's a good kind of stress, though. I love being at conference. I love seeing everybody. But I feel like all of November is like recovery for me between conference season and then going into the holidays. So I'm always trying not to plan too much.
I've got stuffing on the brain. That's all I'm thinking about, and just go right into cozy
pumpkin
movies.
Pie, yeah.
Ooh, actually, great question. Pumpkin pie, yay or nay? I feel like it's a little bit of a divisive topic.
I'm a nay. Sorry.
I love pumpkin pie. Oh my gosh.
I also love a pumpkin pie. Do you like pies in general? Is it the texture? Is it the pumpkin?
Pies are, okay, so, oh my gosh. Why do I feel like this is such a contentious topic?
It is, because
I'm about to expose myself. I'm not really a pie person, so take my dislike of pumpkin with a grain of salt. I'm more of a pecan at the holidays than pumpkin.
I do love a pecan.
I don't dislike pie, but I would rather have cookies or a cake over a pie.
I think pie might be my favorite dessert on earth.
My favorite dessert is ice cream. I will never say no to ice cream.
So true. Ice cream is so good. I would say my all-time favorite dessert, the one I will never say no to, is cheesecake.
It's hard to say no to cheesecake.
It's also creme brulee. If I see creme brulee at a restaurant, I'm grabbing it.
When I was on vacation on the cruise, I had creme brulee every single night.
That sounds like a dream. Night.
I actually own a little butane torch to make creme brulee at home.
I love that. I would be lighting all my food on fire.
All right, I expect several, Leah, in my future.
She's like, Ola's gonna show up at your door, and Leah's gonna be like,
I'll have the sugar on top. I just need to borrow your torch.
You just need to torch it. That's hilarious.
And then we use it to do things like sterilize tweezers or whatever. You know what I mean?
All the not fun stuff.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I'm sad about in November, though, is it's the end of the Halloween Oreo season, because those to me are the best Oreos.
Are they flavored?
They are not flavored.
It's just the little image on them.
I personally think springtime Oreos are the best flavored, even though they're not a flavor.
Do they still make the ones with the blue filling? It used to be blue, and then it was green, and then it was yellow.
I've seen all different colors, so yes.
Okay. So Leah always is talking about how she's a purist with regard to her preference for Oreos. She prefers the original flavored, whereas Ola and I are always talking about what did you think of the Selena Gomez Oreos or the Post Malone
Lackluster.
Oreos? Right?
Amazing.
So true.
I never thought I would pick Post Malone over Selena Gomez in my life, but when it comes to Oreos, sorry.
Okay, so what flavor were Post Malone?
They were a shortbread caramel.
I bet that was good.
It was really good with the chocolate.
As someone who loves a golden Oreo, which I have been shamed for on this podcast before, it really hit the spot because it had that chocolate and shortbready vanilla flavor.
So our group chat was blowing up with the Oreo flavored Reese's versus the Reese's flavored Oreos.
One's a hit, one's a flop.
Agreed. Which one is the hit?
The hit is the Reese's flavored Oreo.
Agreed.
To me, it tastes actually just like a Reese's Pieces. And I those I can eat by the handful.
I love Reese's Pieces, so I probably would like them.
You would love them. Also, we were on vacation with my family, and I did buy a box because, of course, I couldn't shut up about these Oreos. And so I was like, I need them to try it. I need them to validate my feelings. And we were talking about how those specific Oreos come in the box. It instead of just the classic foil container, it comes also in a box. And I don't know if it's the box. I don't know if it's because it's a new flavor, but I swear that those Oreos are fresher. There is a specific crack and crunch when you bite into that Oreo that I have never experienced before. And maybe it's a placebo effect with the box, but I swear they're
Maybe
fresher.
you're just like,
I didn't notice that, but yeah, I mean, I didn't really notice that, but I have another box, full disclosure, in my pantry right now unopened.
You're going to need to do a live taste test on air.
I'm going to record it. I'll be like, here's the crack, here's the crunch, here's the...
We need science. We're going to
Oreo
science our
ASMR.
Oreos. Yeah.
So the hot take, though, is that the Oreo flavored Reese's were not
fine.
A hit. They were okay. They
were
just
fine.
tasted like a Reese's miniature. The ones I had were miniatures. I wonder if the larger ones would have been better, but they just kind of tasted like a cookies and cream Reese's miniature, which
to me, the cookies and cream flavor was not prevalent enough because I love cookies and cream. I think it's one of the elite flavors in the universe. I enjoyed the like little crunch you would get from the little cookie bits, but I needed more cookies and cream flavor. It kind of just tasted, like you said, a Reese's cup with a little bit of crunch.
I have an idea for a secondary podcast where we all just talk about various flavored things.
Leah, that is my dream. All I want to be is a professional food taster. I would be so happy.
And we can
Please
be like,
make this happen.
This month's podcast episode is sponsored by Oreo.
But I feel like my podcast would only just be like Oreos or...
Oh no, we could do like Hershey's Kisses, like all the different flavors of Hershey's Kisses.
So like, okay, Hershey's Kisses, like some of them are better than others. You know, it's hard to really win you over in that like tiny little morsel, I think, sometimes.
I like Hershey's Nuggets better because they're a little bit bigger. And I like the ones that are filled with toffee. Those are amazing.
Ooh, those are so good.
I love those Lindt or Lindor
the
truffles.
Yes.
Oh,
I buy those for every season. I have like the pumpkin spice and the maple
where it's
ones
at.
this
It's
fall.
so good.
They're so good.
I've never had those. I'll have to try those. My biggest like candy like downfall is C's. Have you ever had C's candy?
I've never had
California.
them.
You didn't have it even when you were in
I
California?
saw it at the airport and I was going to do it, but
then.
they didn't have the chocolates. They just had like the hard candies and I didn't want those.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You got to have the chocolates. Yeah. My daughter brings C's home at Christmas time, like pounds of it. So
it's really, really good. It's very good.
It's very expensive too, though.
Yeah. All candy, I think, can be, right? If you go to a high quality candy shop. But anyway, I digress. So the reason we're all here, the podcast.
Not our food podcast, our school library podcast.
You have actually tuned into the library podcast. Don't adjust your dial.
The podcast where I'm going to review all the different shapes of Reese's. Bats, ghosts. No, just kidding. So for today, we don't really have a guest joining us. Leah and I are going to take some time instead to dig into some very real challenges that school libraries face, both in Illinois and then also nationwide. A lot of our conversation might be very specific to things that we're experiencing or doing locally, but I think a lot of people will find it really relatable.
Yes, a lot of these problems that we're going to discuss today are universal and epidemic, if that's the right word to use.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to use the word epidemic now after an actual epidemic. But so I thought I would kind of start this off by talking about something that I'm in the middle of that's keeping me really busy right now, which is the SLATE School Library Census, and like that particular piece of work and kind of how it connects to some of these other broader issues. And I feel like we can kind of just go from there. So if you're not familiar with the SLATE project, it stands for School Library Advocacy Through Education. And this is a project that I actually came to Rails to specifically work on it was a temporary part-time project at that point in 2022. If you've listened to prior episodes of the podcast, we've already kind of told you the backstory. Leah and I both joined our systems about the same time. So for me, it was to work specifically on that project. And fortunately for me, they kept me around. And I still get to work on this project, which I really do love because I really enjoy connecting with school librarians and learning more about what they're doing. So it's really a data collection initiative, right? And it's grounded in advocacy and education to inform equity work and all kinds of other programs and projects that both of our systems engage in. And I think also the Professional Association for School Librarians uses a lot of that information as well. But it's really just looking at the staff, the funding, and then also the collections and material resources that school libraries have across the state of Illinois. And I know just from my work that there are other states that are undertaking this type of work too, because I've been in contact with a lot of other colleagues in, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Rhode Island, Idaho, like a lot of different states talking about what's the best way to learn what's going on in school libraries.
And I work on this data project, and I kind of like to think that if there were no data project, there would be no Janette and Leah, honestly.
Maybe.
Because that's how we met and how we got started working together.
And no, can't shelve this.
Yes.
That would be so sad.
It's a snowball, like it is a snowball effect. So my part of this data project is pushing it out like to the librarians in our neck of the woods and answering questions and talking about it. And I will say that at the beginning, there was a little bit of hesitancy on the part of school districts and school librarians to participate in the data project because they felt like they were going to be dinged in some way for answering a question incorrectly. So one thing I always say to people when we're discussing the SLATE project and the census, this is purely information gathering. There is no wrong answer. We need you to participate.
That's something I've just been reinforcing to people recently is that, like, we're not the library police. Like, we're not here
I was just about to say that. I feel like that's something I hear all the time from the systems is, like, we really have to communicate that we are not the library police. Like, we are on your side. And we would never rat you out.
Well, and like we are legitimately here to support the work you're doing, just to learn more about it and how we can support it, right? So it's very, very difficult to reach people. There's a lot of different reasons why it's hard, right? Like just getting people plugged in. Leah and I both, like, we're fortunate to work with, I think we've mentioned before, the school library partnership that we're part of, all the different organizations that support libraries in Illinois who kind of come together and all are supportive of the SLATE project and helping kind of get the word out and connect people to the work that we're doing so that we can all learn, because this is not something that the State Board of Education tracks. In other states, they do. So that's, a lesson learned for me is that, like, the end goal would be for the State Board of Education to take kind of ownership of this type of compliance or like just information gathering and see how it plugs in to show the importance of school libraries and how they integrate into a student's education experience. But right now, none of the information is reported up to the state board. They're obviously able to access it just like anyone else through the data dashboard that we created, which you can find online. I just want people to feel safe and secure knowing that, like, the information that we gather doesn't really go beyond, our use for advocacy and then also educating the public and people about school libraries.
And I do want to go back to the library police comment, because I was just talking to a group of students about this university course. And I was saying we are in charge of enforcing the library statute in Illinois. But I want to say that we are never going to, like, show up at your door and, like, you are not doing this. Anytime we approach you about something that you may actually be doing wrong, in quotation marks, we would be like, how can we help you?
Right. Absolutely.
Yes. Our 100%, our role is this is not either best practice or this is actually you're not meeting the law or the statute here. This is how we can help you fix it. So anytime that you have a problem, you should bring it to us. It's not something to hide from the systems, because that's what we're here for, to fix it for you or with you.
Even in that capacity, we are, like, working in support of people, right? Like, we're not, like, trying to, like, regulate or, force compliance or anything like that. It's really just like, let's help you, because the statutes are mostly set up to help you be the best library that you can be, right? Like the little library that could. But I think part of what makes that tricky is, and this is something I had kind of planned to talk about a little bit later, but I think it's worth mentioning right here, is the navigating the education space and library spaces. Like, the school libraries kind of are in this, like, weird overlap, right? Like, you have all the information that comes down from the State Board of Education and all those mandates and regulations that you have to follow for, education requirements and curriculum and materials and all of that. But then you also have the library side of things, like the American Library Association, the Illinois Library Association, the
Secretary of State's
IO,
office,
the state library, the systems.
And that's where they get their funding. So you have to comply with what what they say as well. So it's
Right.
a double set of requirements.
It's a very unique space in librarianship, and I think that's why school librarians often feel isolated in the profession.
I think it can also be a source of contention with administrators, right? Because they don't really have that tie to the library community. They have the tie and responsibility and duty to the education community. So they're looking at all what's coming down from the State Board of Education, whereas we're like over to the side saying like, but we have all these things, we can help you. Like we can do these things. We know what's actually best practice for libraries. So rely on us, to help guide you and to, kind of give you an idea of where you should be going. Where do you need to spend your funding? How do you need to invest in library spaces?
And then shall we get into how there is guidance and requirements coming down from the Illinois State Board of Education, but they are not enforced and they get pushed to the side many, many times. So we're over here on this side saying, this is all that you can do. And in a perfect world, this is the best that you could do. But we understand we're not in a perfect world. And we understand that you are not complying with the actual state requirement because it's not enforced. But the minimum that you're doing, let's try to improve it.
I think that one of the issues that we struggle with a little bit in Illinois, at least for as far as compliance goes, or mandating the implementation of school libraries and licensed librarians, is that there are loopholes, right? So you realize that there's hardship exceptions. People need to know what to do if, like, there's no one who lives in your community. Say you live in a very rural part of the state. You only have a very, limited population to draw from for your educators to begin with, right? So if no one's a licensed librarian, you got to go to the next best thing. And what are those options? And that stuff is all laid out in the code. And I think what has happened in Illinois is it's just been easier to use those kind of fallbacks as the standard for how you're going to staff your library or provide those services, because funding is a challenge. Like, I don't want to ignore the fact that funding, especially in every state, but especially in Illinois, is a very contentious thing because we've been through some really bad times in our state, right? Like, I mean, we've had governors who've gone to prison for embezzling. We've had all kinds of things happen and the state was in a budget crisis. We're trying to avoid that. I think that we have leadership in Springfield that is trying to avoid that at all costs, really. And I feel like the Secretary of State, as an advocate for libraries, really is going to bat for libraries in the state with regard to funding. But there are just limitations for education spending and all kinds of things. So I think when superintendents or school boards are forced to make these difficult decisions, the priorities, get shuffled around. And so it's like, you need a library, but who can you put in there? And what's the most cost effective or least expensive way to provide that service?
Yes, the exceptions have definitely become the rule in Illinois.
Yeah.
And the thing that upsets me is you're balancing this on the backs of certified school librarians. Like, why are they the only licensed professional in your school that you're like, okay, well, that's the end of the budget. We don't need one of those.
Like, maybe you're optional. Sorry.
Yes. I don't understand when school librarians became optional.
You wouldn't bring in just anyone to teach math, but you do bring in just anyone to teach library skills.
I always say you would not hire like just a random person to counsel your students because they're empathetic, and you would not hire somebody who loves math to teach. You got to have licenses for both of those. Right. So it's long past time that we stopped hiring people who love to read. No, you should love to read if you're a librarian, but that's not the only requirement.
Yeah, I also want to definitely mention the fact that there is a shortage of licensed librarians in the state of Illinois. I think there's an education shortage nationwide. There's probably also a librarian shortage nationwide, which is going to contribute to some of this, because I can't speak for your system, but I can speak for Rails when I say that people do reach out and they're like, I'm trying to hire a librarian and I just can't find one. So there's a shortage, and some districts are really trying to do the right thing and they're just hitting that roadblock.
And that goes back to the chicken and the egg argument. Is there a shortage because the library jobs are the first ones to go in hard times? Right. Or are they cutting library jobs because they can't fill them because there are no librarians?
Yeah. The other thing is you get a lot of there's some disciplines that are kind of tangential to library and information science. So like a lot of the tech services things, you'll see a lot of library spaces that morph into like part of the library is now your STEM lab or your STEAM lab. And it's like, I'm not against that type of implementation, but also like you have to be very mindful that you're not limiting or diminishing library services when you do that. I mean, I've had a lot of building principals who are like, we have this great new STEM lab. And it's like, okay, if your initiative is to really like pump up like science learning and math education in your school, then that's great. That's what you need. But also librarians support science and math.
Yes.
It's not just reading.
Yes. Librarians support every curriculum item in your school.
Yes.
And I cannot say that enough. And the other thing about STEM labs and tech support is that librarians can do it all. Like librarians are very well trained in supporting tech and STEAM options. But I would say that most technology professionals are not trained in library science.
Yeah. I find a lot of school districts through the data collection that we do who will say that they have a technology specialist working in their library. And it's like when you go to look at least in the state of Illinois, those two licensed endorsements are not even the same topics or subject matter. So it's, you know, like you're not an expert in the right things to be a librarian if you have a technology specialist, you know, license or endorsement. It doesn't mean that you couldn't be a librarian and you can't learn those skills, but it just means that you haven't already learned it and mastered it in the way that you probably need to.
And I want to go back to our repeated disclaimer where we say, we are not saying that there are not amazing non-certified or non-licensed professionals working in libraries.
Agreed.
We are not saying that there are not technology specialists who are doing a fantastic blowout job in the library. We're just saying that the professional librarian position has been chosen by the state of Illinois to be sacrificed, essentially.
Well, we're plugging in a lot of different pegs and seeing if they fit, right? And a lot of the skill set is stuff that can be learned, but to the point of you need some training. Like just like I would need training to go and teach a physics class, I would want that in order to be able to. There's no
amount of training that they could give me to do that.
I loved physics, so like I would be happy to do that. But you know, like you would need some training or background and skills. Like, and you know, you can't just throw anybody in there without a clue as to what is going to happen in a library. And so that's, I think, part of where this project kind of fills in from an education standpoint is that professional development and providing support. Like we already talked about how there's such a shortage, right? Like, so how do you get the people who are actually working in libraries the skills that they need so that they're not struggling? Because it's hard. Like we talk a lot about how you're sometimes a lone wolf, like you don't really have another, you know, support system directly in your building. And you may not have time in a very busy day to connect with your, you know, peer next door down the street.
Or in the next county, because that might be the closest one.
Yeah, depending on what your situation is. So it's like we try really hard to make sure that we are creating professional development opportunities for people to learn the skills that they need to get through the day.
And in the vein of trying to change this, because I would say that this we work with the Professional Association for School Librarians in Illinois, the Association of Illinois School Library Educators, ISLE, as we refer to them constantly. We have a very front and center goal for that partnership, and it is to promote and hopefully one day require a certified or licensed school librarian in every school. And it's going to be a long journey to that.
Yeah. I want to kind of connect that ISLE initiative to a little bit with some legislation that we have in Illinois for licensed librarians, right? So we have what we call the evidence-based funding formula, which is kind of the funding formula to provide each student in Illinois with like a base level of education by identifying core personnel that schools need to have in place, recommended ratios for students to staff, and things like that. So it's like your classroom teachers, your counselors, your administrators, your nurses, your specialists, and also, dun dun dun, your librarians.
And the idea behind evidence-based funding is so that small rural school students can have the same experience as wealthy suburban students, or,
Right.
Inner city students can have the same experience as,
It's an equity measure, and I'm really behind it. And the state invests a lot of money in it every year. And what I want to talk about, though, for us is how the ratios for students to staff in Illinois are something that are not being realized. And I don't know if other states struggle with this same kind of thing, but like for Illinois, for example, if you are in an elementary or a middle school, for every 450 students, you should have one full-time librarian. For every 300 students, you should have one full-time library aide. And then in a high school, for every 600 students, you need one licensed librarian. And for every 300 students, you need one library aide. And back to Leah's point about how all types of educators are important in the library, like it's not just licensed librarians everywhere, right? Even the evidence-based funding legislation provides the distinction and the reason behind having these two different types of positions. It's because there's a library curriculum, just like there's any other kind, like a science curriculum or a math curriculum. And your librarian is teaching that as a licensed teacher. They have those skills and the knowledge. They're going to be the ones who deliver that curriculum, but someone still needs to run the library. So that's where the aides come in. Those are the people who facilitate student use of the library while the curriculum is being taught. So for us, it's we're looking at a couple different things, right? One, just the staff shortage and the lack of coverage for students and availability. Two, the lack of a licensed librarian means in some cases there's no library curriculum. So that's your information literacy, your media literacy skills, all of that kind of out the window. And then limited access to even have, access to information resources, get, access to databases, all of that, research learning, all of those other skills that students might need, kind of on an as needed,
helping them obtain things that your library doesn't own, and all of that.
Exactly. So it's in a perfect world, we understand that this is a really difficult thing to fund from a money standpoint, but you definitely see the need for it.
I always feel like the school that I came from and other schools communicate to me that they're very proud that they have someone, not necessarily a licensed librarian, but that we have a librarian in every building. I'm like, well, okay, but the school that I came from, I was by myself. We should have had 4 personnel. I should have had 2 librarians and 2 aides at a minimum. And I'm like, I was doing the work of 4 people. I always felt like I was doing the work of 4 people.
I think many people feel that way, right? It's just, you are a little bit run ragged. And it goes back to those stories we've talked about too, where people have said, I come home from work every day and I'm not really sure I'm doing a good job because you're wearing so many hats. And I think one of the things, soft skill wise, that's great about librarians is we are good at wearing many hats. We are willing to help and do whatever's needed. But at the same time, many hands make light work. So if you could really spread that out, think about how much further you could push some of your programs or how you could expand certain resources and things if you just had a little bit more support. It's a tough thing. I think in a perfect world, obviously every school district would be able to fund and afford everything that they needed.
There's a meme that goes around that says something to the effect of teachers have to do the impossible with no resources, and the miracle is they often do. And that's where we are in Illinois, I believe, and especially in the library field. And the sad thing is, when you're talking about all of these sacrifices, the thing that slides is the instruction, because everybody's idea of a library is checking in and out and kids having access to books and helping them select books and help them book shop, as we learned about in our symposium. And so then the teaching, what is a reliable resource? What is a way to get the information that you need? How do you give credit to those resources? All of that then slides on to the classroom teachers who are already overburdened trying to do the impossible with no resources. So there are entire schools that get no instruction, and then they're churning out kids who go to colleges who expect them to know that.
Yeah. So I think this is just really underscores why Leah and I are spending a lot of time recently trying to connect with the education community. Like we've discussed different ways to get in contact with the regional superintendents. So by every regional office of education in Illinois, and learn more about what they do, what the compliance looks like. So if you're part of an ROE or you work for or know someone who works for an ROE, let us know, because we are trying so hard to meet with people and just have a better understanding. So and it's not even really like we want to sit down and have this like intense discussion. It's very much a learning process, I think. Like
we just want to partner with you. Yes.
Yeah.
Like if you work for the Illinois State Board of Education, I am trying constantly to make inroads there. They're a very insular group. And I understand they have a huge responsibility with no resources. It's the common theme, as you'll see, that we're going back. But we want to tell our members the right things and communicate, because ultimately we all have the same exact goal, which is to help our students get a great education.
One of the things we did last year that we're going to return again this year is to the joint conference for the Illinois Association of School Boards, School Administrators, and School Business Officers, which is in the end of this month in Chicago. I love that conference. It's always so fun. Those people, it was great to talk to people, but it was also a really nice exchange of information, like learning about the work they're doing. And then for them to learn about kind of like the services and things that we can provide. But I guess this year I'm going with kind of a different focus, or I guess a new question in mind of like, how else does the Board of Education support staffing school libraries and the work of school libraries and literacy? Because we do have this statewide comprehensive literacy plan, and I know everyone's been talking about it, and now they're implementing, or I guess the work has begun for the numeracy plan. So it's going to be, the same kind of thing, but the number side of the work. So just really trying to understand what that process looks like for them. And maybe there are ways that we can support the comprehensive literacy plan that we're not aware of, right?
Exactly. And it was so great last year to talk to school boards. We would be like, do you have a school librarian? Yes, we do. Are they licensed? Yes, they are. And then they would be like, oh, wait, maybe they aren't. I don't know if they are or not. And then we would have a really great conversation about the differences between being licensed and being unlicensed and what that meant and how many schools do and schools your size. Because we would pull up the SLATE data right there on a computer and say, look,
I was just going to say, this is where that project kind of has been crucial for the advocacy piece, right? Is being able to say, this is the data that you sent to us or that your district submitted that represents the libraries in your schools. Is this accurate, and what's going on, and how can we help you?
And I think the comparison tool too, like to be able to compare, like, oh, what's my neighboring school look like? Unfortunately, I feel like that comparison and peer pressure almost, I think we talk a lot about positive peer pressure. Like, I think it does work, right? Because I assume they're very worried about optics. And
I want the intense rivalries between schools to be over how good their library is, not how good their football team is.
Well, we have 3 certified school librarians. Oh, yeah. Well, we have
about
5.
You?
Oh, my God.
It gives whole new, importance to the Battle of the Books kind of program, right?
It does.
Dun, dun, dun. It is funny, though, because, I think about conferences I've been to where I talk to licensed librarians who are from districts who have a lot of licensed librarians on staff, and they are sometimes afraid to speak up. Because they're like, I don't want to say too much, because what if my district realizes they could get by with a lot less? And then, so it's like, how do you kind of balance the advocacy work to not jeopardize what someone already has?
Same with budgets.
Yeah. And so through the SLATE census, we're collecting all the information and reporting it out, but there's not really this, I'm not pitting anyone against each other in that, venue. You can definitely look at what other people have or what they don't have and kind of decide what to make comparisons on. And Leah and I do a whole PD about what are the right comparisons to make? What are, how many comparisons do you need? Don't compare just on one metric. Don't just go by the school next door, even though that's always tempting because they may not be the best district to compare.
It may not be the
to.
right comparison.
Yeah.
And if you would like us to come do that PD with you, please reach out, because it's one of our favorite things to do. So we're doing one.
We do. So. We do love to do that. One of my favorite things to kind of talk about is the way to use the SLATE data for advocacy and the way, what that looks like. But Not to plug the census, but I am going to plug the census a tiny bit.
As you should.
So the census started in October and it runs through December 31st. So 3 full months for school libraries in Illinois to send in their information. It's at a building by building level. So if you are the librarian for a particular school, you would send in information about your staff, your collection, and your budget just for that school building. And I'm going to make a blanket apology to all the multi-building librarians out there because I know there are a lot of them. And some of you manage a lot of buildings, like up to 12 to 15. I apologize that it's one form per school, but it allows us to collect much better data and have a better understanding of how your staff is being used and the types of resources you need. In Illinois, it costs about, I think, $17,000 to educate a student. And on average, a school district is spending about $13 per student in the library. So like, that's not a lot of money. It's not a big part of that lump sum. And so it's like, how do we want to understand, we know spending is not uniform across schools. It's not even uniform across like districts in the same county or the same types of area. So
it's not uniform inside districts, sadly.
Yeah. Right? Like it's not building to building. And, every school building in your district doesn't even have the same needs, right? Like what is provided for students should really reflect the needs of the community it's serving. So we want to make sure that we're able to kind of capture that nuance and not make assumptions about, who is accessing what databases and things like that, even if it is sometimes a little bit harder, it takes a little bit longer to separate out the budget to account for those things. So I'm just going to also say, I'll make a blanket offer. Anybody can always contact me if you have a question, or like I'm always just one Zoom call away. Like I'm happy to get online and walk through the worksheet. There's a prep worksheet to help you collect the data that you need to input it. There's a separate file for you to submit your staff information. None of it is personally identified, so no names are submitted. We just are asking for position titles and then information like how many hours they work and those types of things. And same with the budget. Like we try to kind of really protect what's happening from a budget standpoint because we know that a lot of people are reluctant to share that kind of information.
And you can feel free to contact me. I will help you until I can't help you anymore. And then I will contact my good friend, Janette. So
right.
I wanted to add one more thing about the Association of School Boards conference. We will be inviting all of those school board members and all of those administrators that we meet to a town hall that the two systems, Rails and IHLS, are going to hold. And we want to invite you personally, and please share it. It's not scheduled yet and it's not out there, so I cannot give you a link or where to find it yet, but it will be coming very soon. And we invite you to invite someone from your school to come learn about the library systems, how we can help, that we're not there to come down on them for what they're unable to do. So we just want to be sure that you know that we're a resource for you.
Yeah, this is part of that collaboration and connection that we're trying to establish with the people in the education community. I feel like it's a really great way to do it. I hope people will take advantage of it because I'm as interested in learning about the work they're doing as introducing them to the work we're doing.
Exactly.
I do want to go back for just a second to talk a little bit more about funding and budgets, if that's okay.
Sure.
This is a struggle. Like, let's just lay it out there, right? Like, we're not going to sugarcoat this. Like, this is something that is very hard. And I would say 9 times out of 10, when I have a conversation with school librarians about what their needs are in their school and what they're trying to advocate for, it's more money. I don't know about you. Is that the same true for you?
100% more money or more staff, which is tied to more money. So
Right. So it's like the two things are not mutually exclusive. So let's talk about budgets. Like we said, $13 per student. If you have a very, very small district, like some districts have only 100 students, like that's only $1,300. That's not a lot of money. So for those librarians, they're going to have to find other sources of funding, or they're going to get by with very little.
So many libraries that I talk to have no budget that they are aware of. They can, from time to time, ask for something, but they do not regularly order new books. They do not regularly order supplies. They do not update or replace outdated material because they don't have a budget at all.
I was going to say that's hard for weeding and like you're trying to maintain a healthy collection. and how, those are the collections that get severely outdated. And now you have information about, like preparing for the moon landing. And we're like, well, we're a little bit beyond that.
Preparing for Y2K.
Right. Oh my gosh. I would love to read a book about Y2K on this side of Y2K, because that was wild living through that. And then
that was a wild time to be alive, let me tell you.
I'm laughing because also like Taco Bell right now has that Y2K menu, but I am here for that. The caramel apple empanada. Sorry, this is a total aside, but yeah.
I'm always ready to talk about Taco Bell.
I know that. I love Taco Bell.
I'm trying to get a Taco Bell sponsorship. Maybe save that
like
for the other podcast.
A personal Taco Bell sponsorship.
Oh, yeah,
like 100%. I'm sponsored by Taco Bell.
Yeah.
I would be happy if Taco Bell would just send me like the caramel apple empanadas like nonstop, because I could eat a million.
All right,
of those.
Taco Bell, you heard it.
Get on it. Right
Fund
here.
our next podcast.
So
they can fund our food podcast that we were talking about earlier.
Right? So one of the things that we do talk a lot about is with regard to funding is the school district library grant that is available through the Illinois State Library. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that, because one of the things that's really relevant to the discussion we're having is that there is a minimum grant award. That grant is awarded at 88.5 cents per student, but there's a minimum award of $850. So that's about 900 students for a district to get more than that minimum. But what I really want to ask you, Leah, is what can you buy with $850?
Not very much.
How many Doritos Locos tacos can I buy?
We're still on the Taco Bell thing.
I will say with full disclosure that the school that I came from had an enormous budget. And I was extremely fortunate. And it's probably close to 25 times that. So I did not have budget problems at my school. But even with that huge budget, I still could not buy everything that our students wanted. So when you have a tiny budget to work with, if you're working with $850 that you get from the state library, and then maybe you have a book fair and maybe you have $1,000, to be perfectly honest, if you have a book fair, most of the funds have to be spent with the book fair company.
Yeah, true.
And so you're limited there. You're limited by the ever rising cost of books. It just is skyrocketing. Like, everything's more expensive
like everything
now.
else is, right? Yeah.
And then you have to try to buy the supplies you need to keep those items safe. Because if you put a book on the shelf with no protective cover, you have to have a barcode or some way to track it. And you have to have like glue to put it back together if it does get dropped and the spine broken. So none of that is cheap. And so all of these school librarians are making really hard choices. They're deciding, do I buy the new Diary of a Wimpy Kid book? Because there's a new one every single year that the kids are dying to read. How many times do you have a kid dying to read a book?
Right.
Or do you buy the ink and the labels you need to put them on the shelf?
Those like hidden, those unseen costs.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't really think about, there are a lot of little things that add up. And I think some of it is like, some librarians say that they specifically get a supply budget that is just for library things. Some of it, their supplies come out of the school supply budget. So it's more of like a discretionary, like you just have to ask for it. And I feel like maybe those people are a little bit luckier because it's easier to kind of just be like, hey, I need more tape, or hey, I need this kind of tape. And they're like, oh, well, it just comes out of the supply budget and it's fine. What's eye-opening to me is whenever I go, every so often, I try to look up the average cost of books, right? So if you're going to purchase books for your library, School Library Journal, I'm just going to plug School Library Journal. I love School Library Journal.
I do too.
They put out the best information and data about like collections and purchasing and budgets, and they do lots of great surveys with school librarians. And I do use them as a resource quite a bit when I'm just looking up information. But I mean, if you look at all the different types of books schools might buy, right? Like graphic novels, hardcovers, not textbooks. That's a completely different kind of purchasing as far as I'm concerned for this discussion. But it's about $20, maybe just under, but still $20 per book. So that's what, like not even 50 books for $850, and then when you think about things like you've got to pay for your ILS. And that doesn't even count for databases. Like, do you offer databases, right?
We do have to jump in here with the fact that Illinois has recently really come through on that front. And school librarians and public librarians are benefiting greatly from the Illinois Reliable Information Source database package. I cannot plug that enough.
Thank you
Yes,
to
thank
Secretary
you.
Janulius and the Illinois State Library. Like, he really went to bat for that right out of the gate when he took office. He is a huge advocate for libraries, and we are so grateful.
We are. But here is where I chastise anybody listening who hasn't dived in yet. Please use them. If you don't use them, we're going to lose them. So,
Leah, what was the statistic that you shared recently about the number of school districts that are plugged into the database package? It was really low.
less than 10%.
Yikes. That's so surprising.
And I understand completely. I do.
Yeah.
Because they are busy. They are already overwhelmed. This looks like just one more thing. So this is another thing where if you would like help, call me. I will help you, or I will connect you with the experts who can help you. And same thing at Rails. You can contact Jessica Silva and she will help you, or she will connect you with the experts who can help, because it is an amazing tool. And if you're not using it, your students are really missing out.
Yeah, we are so lucky to have access to that. And I do know that you see questions from people, and the people at the state library are very responsive. They want to make sure that those are available to every resident of Illinois. So
Yes.
definitely take advantage of that. And the people at the state library are more than willing to get you plugged in. I want to talk a little bit about actual changes in budget. One of the things that they were studying in the SLIDE project, which was what led to the SLATE project that I work on, was this 3-year study of the decline in school librarianship nationwide. That talked a lot about how administrator priorities determine how the way that spending happens in schools and districts, and same thing with school boards and their knowledge and priorities, right? But one of the things that came out of this Library Journal article I was looking at, when they was talking more about the survey that had collected about itemized spending and budgets over time, is that about 65% of the libraries that they surveyed, or that responded to their survey, had no change in budget since 2022, despite the fact that the cost of things is definitely changing, right? 20% of the libraries reported they had a decrease in their budget. Only 15% of the libraries saw an increase. And it doesn't really even say how much of an increase.
Just an increase.
Right. And I will say this, maybe we're on par or a tiny bit ahead, because they said the average budgeted amount per student is $12. So in Illinois, we're at $13. So we're right about at the national average, or just above. I don't know that that's really anything to write home about, but at least we're not way behind.
We're keeping up. We're keeping up.
Right.
So that brings us to how do we fund libraries, and how can school librarians get more money for their libraries? And everybody's like, oh, well, apply for grants. Okay. Yes, apply for grants. But that takes time.
Right.
Which school librarians don't have. It takes expertise that many librarians don't have. You're not trained, at least I wasn't in library school. You may be now. That would be great if they did that.
There are classes for that in library school, but that's if you have time. You have only so much time and so much money to take classes. I think we maybe have had this conversation before, how I would have stayed in library school for 10 years because there were so many things I wanted to study. And so now I kind of just have to study it on my own. But it's hard to become an expert grant writer on your own.
Yes.
I will say that in Illinois, we do have resources, trainings, PD, specifically for school librarians. We offer those types of trainings, which are really helpful, but still you have to have time to go.
Yes. And the competition for grants is intense.
Yes.
So
agreed.
I don't think grant funding is the answer to school library funding issues in Illinois.
Huge kudos to the people who do apply for grants, and they win some big amounts for their libraries. And I love to hear those stories, but they are few and far between, honestly.
They are. And it just is like everything else. I'm like, why do I have to have a bake sale to do the bare minimum in my school? You know what I mean?
This is one of the places where I think our partnership with the Illinois Library Association is going to come into play and be really important for school libraries. One of their legislative priorities for this upcoming session is to support an increase in state grant programs by up to 20% for libraries.
I'm very excited about that possibility. And it has been a
too.
long time coming. And it won't solve the problem, but it will help. It will help.
The real question there is going to be whether the state feels like that's a financial burden it can take on, right? Because money's got to come from somewhere. And there's a lot of grant funds that are distributed through all the many grant programs at the state library and through the state. So I personally, I'm not going to say that this is the only thing I want, but personally, I would like to see an increase in that minimum grant award. Yes. I feel like that would be a huge win.
It would be, because then we go back to some other problems that we see with the applying for the state school district library grant, which is a very easy grant to get. I tell everybody, don't be afraid to apply for it. It's not one of the ones that it's not competitive. First of all, it is a grant.
Either you qualify or you don't.
Either you qualify or you don't. And it doesn't take a lot of time to fill out. But a lot of schools are not applying for it. I just heard from the state library, a list of people that don't apply and the reasons why. Some of them are just, they didn't even know about it, which is a huge problem. We are trying all the time to get the word out to apply for the school district library grant.
So unfortunately for this year, it's closed. But Leah, do you want to tell people when it opens?
Yes, it opens like 1st of September and it closes on October 15th. It's very easy to apply. The only requirements are that you meet the system membership requirements, which is that you have a library, you have a catalog, you have staff, and you have a budget, whatever your budget may be. The new requirement for the grant is that your school complies with State Law 103-0100, which is also known as the anti-book banning law. We could talk for hours and days about that law in general. I just want to mention here, do not be afraid to adopt that policy and apply for the grant. That policy is not going to limit your local control of your school library collection. It is not going to prevent you from removing a book that may be too mature for your kids. It is just saying that if your books otherwise meet your collection development policy, meaning it is the right age and the right content, you can't take it off because it has a Muslim character, for example, or you can't take it off because it talks about a religion that you don't practice.
In that law itself, there are very specific criteria outlined for what is excluded from challenge, right? So it doesn't, like you said, if a book is psychologically harmful, you can still challenge that. Like, it doesn't negate your collection development policy, which is, I think, the thing that most people took away from that when it first passed, is they were like, oh no, like now I don't have any recourse. And it's like, you still do.
Yes.
Every librarian still has the ability to manage and decide what is best for the community that they are serving. To clarify, though, that Public Act 103-100 compliance is not part of system membership. I just want to make sure that we're clear about that for Illinois librarians. You can still be a system member,
even if you don't comply with that act. But if you want money, you must comply with that law.
And you do have to document and show your compliance annually. So it's not like I just send you my form 1 year and I'm good for 10 years. Like, you will have to submit that with each grant application.
And I will say, in one particular case where a school district had applied for and was notified that they were eligible for the grant, I believe they pulled their compliance because of various reasons, most having to do with a complete misunderstanding of the law. But their funding was then pulled because they no longer complied. So just keep that in mind. And if you want or need help with that, please contact your system contact. We will be glad to help you. And if we can't answer your question, we will connect you with the state library who can. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of that law.
That's one of those places where I do feel like that divide between the education community and the library community really hurt the understanding of what was happening, right? Because information was coming down from the Illinois Association of School Boards for school boards to adopt policies. And that was helpful in some regard, but also like maybe there wasn't enough context because libraries and librarians understood better what the intent of the bill was, or the staff coming from the library side of things. And we, as hard as we try to push out information, like, you can lead a horse to water, like, and there's a flood of information. To be fair, people are fighting their way. Like, I just imagine people out there like trying to, trying to get the information they need.
Which is why you need librarians, because we help stem that river of information.
Right. Ooh, that is excellent way to wrap up this discussion. You are right. That's what we're here for. And that's why school librarians are so important. I mean, I know we're preaching to the choir, but that's why they are so important in schools.
The number one takeaway I have for you listeners for this show is to share this episode with an administrator or a school board member at your school. Because I think there's so much misunderstanding. And I think so many of these problems could be solved if we weren't fighting that information disconnect.
Yeah, and I feel like we can all work together. Like I want school librarians to come away from this like understanding that they're not alone in these challenges. These are very real problems that we can all work towards a solution. Like, I want you to feel empowered. Like, there is something we can do about this, and we just need to work together and pool our resources to help people better understand the work that we do. I think I mentioned this on another episode about, the time I was listening to Amanda Jones talk about her book, and she said, librarians are not good at advocating for themselves outside of library spaces. And I think it's something that we're working to get better at, but in this case, we really need to get better at it in the education space. And so, we're happy to work with everyone and help support you in your efforts to do that in whatever space you're in.
And advocacy doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be huge, and it doesn't have to be you standing on a table with a sign in a school board meeting. Advocacy can be done in very small and friendly ways, I would say. I think people think of advocacy as aggressive or unfriendly, and it's not. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
One of the easiest forms of advocacy is also my favorite. It's just sending your building administrator, your superintendent, and your school board an annual report every year.
Saying how many books you checked out, how many students you saw.
Tell people about the work you do. You are doing a great job, and you deserve the recognition and the acknowledgement, and people need to know what you're doing. They deserve to know.
I call that shameless self-promotion, and librarians need to do more of it.
Agreed. So speaking of librarians and what we need, we'll go to our final segment of the show, Shelf Care, and talk about how we're taking care of ourselves right now. And I'm going to be fully transparent here. I am not doing a great job of this. I am feeling some type of way about a lot of things lately. And for a while, books were kind of getting me through and I could disassociate. And even now, like, my reading has slowed down. Like, I'm normally a 10 to 15 books a month kind of reader. And I'm trickled down to 5.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I'm struggling to get through 5. So I don't know. How about you, Leah? What are you doing this to take care of yourself?
So I talked in the previous episode about going to swim at the Y, which I have totally embraced, loving it. I'm actually going swimming after this, after we finish recording. So I'm still hanging in there and trying to swim because it's like, I don't know why my brain turns off when I'm swimming. And that might be the only time when my brain turns off. So I'm like, let's go so my brain can turn off because I struggle with that.
So I'm going to use that as the reason why I attend so many hockey games.
Okay.
So please explain to my husband why I need to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year to
definitely
watch
do. It's self-care.
People skate around. But I do feel like for me, I mean, maybe that's it. That's one of my kind of coping mechanisms, or it's a place where I relax. Like, I do enjoy watching live sports. So I am a huge Chicago Blackhawks fan. So I do go to a lot of those games. But I do just enjoy watching hockey in general. And I don't know, that's me.
Good for you.
Leah's like, good for you. I hate
do whatever it takes. No, okay. No, of all sports, I love hockey the most. Hockey and basketball are the two sports that I can stand to watch. No baseball and no football.
Baseball's a great sport to watch because you don't have to pay attention 100% of the time. You're
then
kind
why
of
go?
paying attention.
Like, you can do
you go
something
for
else.
the hot dogs.
Yeah. Well, no. I can make a hot dog at home.
This playoffs, I had the chance to go to a Cubs playoff game, and I think it was actually the first game of the wild card series, and it was the best experience. I've been to Wrigley Field a bajillion times in my life. Sorry, lifelong Cubs fan. Also, that's why I know how to be a fan of a losing team. But anyway,
you're just a fan. I don't care if they win. You just like them,
right?
You know?
And that's really the thing, right? But the atmosphere during that game, people were standing up. It was the second inning. I was like, we're not even close to the end, but everyone was fully plugged in and engaged. It was wild. But so I was like, this is why I go. You're there for the atmosphere.
The connection. Yep. And I will say that when I root for a team, it is usually I am from St. Louis, the St. Louis area. So obviously Cardinals are the reign down here. But the year the Cubs won the World Series, I was thrilled because I want the underdog to win. Because
it was 108 years of misery.
Yes. So I want the underdog.
Or like, I love when it's like a team that's never won before ever in their history. And you're like, okay, you deserve it. You should win it.
We're going to get the school librarians to win, guys.
Yes,
I hear the
We're
metaphorical
the underdogs.
undertones, and we're going to make it happen.
I feel like is a similar kind of experience, and maybe Ola can relate to this because I know she likes live music too, is when you go to a concert and you're at the concert and everyone is singing the song together at the top of their lungs, and you're like, these are my people. Like we're all like fans, and that sense of unity.
And then you watch the video on your phone later and you can hear yourself horribly off key singing along.
I will say, as I've gotten older, I'm a little bit more aware of. I'm trying to be self-aware, and I try not to sing if I'm recording.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but the person next to you didn't get that memo.
No.
Nope. So I'm going to turn it over to Ola for a second because she has something really exciting to share with our listeners. Something new.
Something new and exciting. You can now purchase Can't Shelve This merch in the Rails store.
Woo!
My entire family is getting Can't Shelve This merch for Christmas, whether they want it or not. So yeah, go buy merch.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's like also kind of a little surreal when I got my first thing in the mail and I was like, this is a podcast. This is my podcast.
I know. I got a big tote bag that I'm going to like fill up with stuff and carry it around. So, and then like people will stop you and say, what's Can't Shelve This?
Well, that's the hope, right? Yeah.
That is the hope.
So if you go to railslibraries.threadless.com, I'll also put the link in the show notes. You can check out what's available, but we've got, of course, like t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, things like that. But we also have accessories like tote bags, hats, buttons, magnets, zip pouches, notebooks, anything you can think of. I did pass on the duvet cover for the Can't Shelve This logo. I am so sorry to report that to our fans. If you're trying to snuggle up with the pod and have some sweet dreams, I might have to get some more requests for that before I add it in the shop.
If you're dying for that, you're going to have to appeal. So
all right, so that's going to do it for this episode. As always, let us know if you have questions or topic suggestions. We would love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail on our hotline, 630-734-5015. But until next time, stay legit, don't quit.